Greetings, Professor Butler and my fellow classmates. I hope everybody's holidays are getting off to a great start. I would like to take you on a visual exploration through the eyes of Ukrainian artists who have created great examples of wartime art. This art was created by artists who were impacted by the Russian invasion of their homeland, Ukraine, in February of 2022. This presentation will cover 3 different Ukrainian artists, some of their amazing artwork, and how this art displays resilience and defiance by making a political statement, shared cultural identity, and solidarity within the community of Ukraine. This presentation will discuss this art as well as go over a little bit of a backstory of the artist and what inspired them to create their art. I think it's important to mention that when looking at art, that everyone's interpretation is different, and everyone's entitled to looking at and enjoying and interpreting art in their own way, and how art can evoke emotion differently from one person to another. And I think that's important to mention when looking at this artwork, because I'll go over some of the art and explain some of it, but I might see it differently than someone else will. And I think that's a good thing because it sparks conversation. And that's really what art is about. Before I go over the 3 separate pieces of artwork and the social impact that this art is showing, I think it's important to go over a little bit about the history of Ukraine and its and different forms of art, in particular poetry. The article that was included for our assignment, which was entitled Ukrainian Poetry, has been speaking to the experience of war for years, was published in a magazine, an online magazine called the National Endowment for the Humanities. And it goes into detail about the evolution of Ukrainian poetry from a traditional past to its more modern take that has been shaped through a historical and cultural lens and cultural upheavals. This article explores how these Ukrainian poets have used poetry to help create a national identity as well as a way to process conflict like the one that they're currently facing. The article goes on to talk about how the war with Russia has forced the poets to adapt a sharper tongue, a newer, pushing the language of Ukrainian to express their grief, loss, and survival. I think that's interesting because the medium of poetry can be used to profoundly shape a country's traditions and culture through the power of words. And I think that the medium of visual art can do the same through our senses of sight. And I think wartime art or conflict art often takes on a sense of community, right? It affects a more broader community, right? It supersedes that individual expression to become more of a collective response to a bigger, something bigger than just one person, right? It's not just art for a few, right? It's art for the many, because it could be this wartime art could be used to make a political statement, to preserve cultural identity, to help heal. I think both poetry and visual art, especially in Ukraine during this well, conflict with Russia, uh, share universal themes of resilience and cultural identity, empowerment, hope, solidarity. Um, I think visual art, as you will see in the next three pieces of art, will show how this has deeply affected that psyche of the Ukrainian people. What you're looking at now is entitled St. Olha of Kyiv by Ukrainian Canadian artist Ivanka Siolkowsky. Um, she's created a piece of digital art um, that displays religious iconography. The Webster Dictionary defines the art form of iconography as a traditional or conventional image or symbol associated with a subject, and especially a religious or legendary subject. This is interesting because you're looking at the patron saint of defiance and vengeance for the country of Ukraine. She was a royalty from the 10th century who was canonized, um, meaning she was put up for sainthood. And the artist does an interesting job of connecting this like religious tradition with contemporary warfare by blending this traditional holy figure with a anti-tank missile called the Javelin, and the artwork does a really good job of representing the courage of Ukrainian women on the front lines, and showing that the courage and bravery of every Ukrainian, and that they must fight uh, against the Russian invasion of their country. Um, the artist Ivanka Siolkowsky was actually quoted in one of the uh, articles I found her artwork in. She quote says, "Art is more than beauty; it's a tool of resistance and survival, especially during wartime. Art can be a tool of resistance and a means of promoting national identity and pride that encapsulates how Ukrainian art mirrors themes of defiance and resilience. Art preserves identity, documents struggle, and inspires hope for a brighter future." End quote. And I think that's very well said, as well as being a very remarkable and powerful image. The next artwork that we will discuss comes from the artist named Natalia Amirova, entitled Kiss Before the Evacuation. As you're looking at this photo, what is it that you're feeling? What is it that these two people are potentially feeling? Is it their first kiss, or does it look more like a kiss goodbye? Well, a brief explanation from the artist, who explains that when uh, she was witnessing women and children evacuating the eastern region of Ukraine during the first few weeks of the war, uh, the men had to stay and fight as the resistance grew, uh, while the women and children fled further west. You can see in the picture, it looks to be an older couple sharing one last kiss through what seems to be a fence, though you can't quite make it out. It's very abstract. But you can see that this picture, um, there seems to be a pained expression on the woman's face. And it's captured in a very like a very somber moment. The man's face is sort of fragmented, which could highlight the fact that um, there is this separation between both the man and the woman, um, possibly through a fence or a piece of like a gate. The artist did a good job with presenting a visual counterpart to the themes that we've kind of been discussing throughout this article, by transforming a very private, candid interaction between like a husband and wife into more of this universal like, message about love and the human element to war and the cost that it has on everyone that's involved. From the original article that we read, once again, was entitled Ukrainian Poetry Has Been Speaking to the Experience of War for Years. There was a quote from one of the artists, and it went, quote, shifts and transformations have occurred throughout the populace and within the new, sharper language. The poets use to not only mourn those who have died, but also to highlight the losses of the survivors, end quote. I really thought that this quote resonated perfectly with this artwork as it depicted both the survival aspect and the aspect of like mourning and the act of mourning being somber as these couple are kissing um, goodbye, not knowing if they'll be able to see each other again. I think that's a very powerful image. The last piece of artwork I'd like to show has some themes that were different from the first two artwork, as this one depicts more themes of resilience, empowerment, and hope of the Ukrainian people, especially during this difficult time that they're facing. The artist's name is Daniel Skripnik, and his art is called The Sunflower Symbol, and I believe it is a perfect example of how art can inspire and unite a country by using a national symbol to evoke cultural identity. The symbol, as you can clearly see in this painting, is a sunflower, which so happens to be the national flower of Ukraine. The sunflower represents a few key things such as peace, hope, and vitality. The artist chose this symbol because Skripnik, who has been quoted as saying, and I quote, "The sunflower reminds me of the beauty and strength of Ukraine I grew up in, and it reminds the world that even in hardship there is light," end quote. His artwork has gained global recognition as he uses the sunflower in a lot of his art, and it's been featured in Save Ukraine National Marathon, and also was later adopted by the Ukrainian Ministry of Culture as it has quickly become easily recognized internationally as an emblem of the Ukrainian resistance. So this artist, Daniel Skripnik, has gained a lot of um, publicity, which is great because he also uses this to platform and highlight um, LGBTQ plus rights, as he is an openly gay artist who's living in Kiev, um, who's there, uh, you know, helping to support the war effort through his artistic expressions, even though he faces great personal risk with Russia's anti gay stance, which threatens decades of progress in Ukraine. I think it is incredibly brave and noble to be fighting for more than just your country's independence, but also fighting for your own personal independence to be who you want to be. And he seems to be a very big advocate, and once again using his sunflower symbols as both a cultural and personal uh, resilience and resistance, fighting for not just an individual, but once again a collective through his war protest art and conflict art. So to close, I would like to say that these three artists did a great job of highlighting the key themes that were talked about in the original article, and wanted to pick this artwork um, that highlighted certain themes such as resilience and defiance, to cultural preservation and survival, as well as empowerment. And because, after all, this class is a diversity elective, I thought it was important to highlight artists from more marginalized groups to showcase the bravery of these groups fighting for their country. I really do think that art can put a voice to the voiceless, and I hope that you enjoyed this presentation and the artwork. Please take your time to click on the links I provided that shows more of the artwork from the artists, as well as many more artists, too many to list, that I could not highlight all um, for you in this presentation. I would like to just say that art is a beautiful form of expression that can inspire hope amid war and devastation. So thank you. And let's keep Ukraine in our hearts. Have a great day.